Welcome to Fabric Monday. Today we'll talk about virtual members in Onelake security. Let's understand what is this and what problem this solves. The problem is how the Onelake security, which is the security applied directly on the data, relates to the object permissions that we set in Fabric and the workspace permissions that we set in Fabric. So we have three levels of permission. How these three levels of permissions relates to each other. Let's see how it works. We can see my workspace at this moment, and I already have the manage access opened. I can change the access permissions for any user. You already know the permission levels: viewer, admin, member, and contributor. These are the permission levels, and I mentioned before one relation between these and the Onelake security. Anything above viewer bypass the Onelake security. So for the application of the Onelake security, the user needs to be only viewer in the workspace. But what about the object permission? How the object permissions related to this? Let's check. In my Lakehouse, I open manage permissions. Here I can see the permissions set to the Lakehouse. A viewer receives the permission read and view output. An admin receives all these possible permissions in a Lakehouse. So how this relates to the Onelake security? Well, the admin, we know that it bypasses the Onelake security, but what about these two? And what about the fact that I can change the permissions for a user? I can add a user with one specific permission set which I can choose. For example, I can come to this menu and add additional permissions to this user. How this maps to the Onelake security? I'm back to the Lakehouse, Onelake security configuration. The best way to visualize this concept is to use new and see the window to create a new role. The role name, the type, we only have grant at the moment, the permissions, the objects that will be given permission to, and I have the option to add members. Only this? No, here is the secret. There is a button Advanced Configuration. In this Advanced Configuration, I have one more option. I have the option to link this role to the permission groups. Permission groups are the permissions the object has. So the read permission, the write permission, the reshare, the execute, or the read all permission. This means that if a user receives one of these permissions in the object, the user will be automatically mapped to the Onelake security role and receive the exact permission I want inside the Onelake security. So I can map the object permission to the Onelake security permissions using these permission groups. Let me cancel this, cancel the creation of a new role. And we have the full role. This role, the full reader, is here since the beginning. This role has a secret. Let's take a look. Let's go to members and choose to add members. Then when we are adding members to the role, we can see that this role is linked to a permission group. We can only see that the link exists when we are adding a new member, but yes, this role is linked to a permission group, the read all permission. So any user that receives the read all falls in this role. Let's prove what I'm talking about. I have the role read employees. Let's take a look on the role and the permissions. It gives permissions to the employee table and only the employee table. And the user Dennis, this account is in the role. Back to the Lakehouse permissions, I'll get that account and I want to that account the read all permissions. By adding the read all permissions to this other account, this user now has permissions to read everything because it's mapped to that other default role. Here in this other window, I'm connected as this user. Let me open the Lakehouse. And here it is. The user can see all the tables in the Lakehouse. This user is inside a role which gives permission only to the employees table. But at the same time, this user receives the object permission read all. And the object permission read all is mapped to a second role which gives permission to see all the objects. So here it is. The user can see all the objects. Back in the Onelake security configuration, I will remove this default role. Let's delete this default role. Delete. And I'll get the role ReadCustomers, members in role, add members, and I'll use the advanced configuration to map the read all to the role ReadCustomers. This time, every user who has permission to read all has also permission to read customers. In fact, when we list the members in role, it already shows it here. This is the user with low permission that I'm testing, received the permission on the group level, is mapped to this role from the group level where the user has the read all permission. Let's see the result. I'm back to the browser with my user with low permission. Let me make a refresh. And here it is. The user now can see the table customers and can see the table employees. Both tables are visible to this user. He can see the table employee because he is inside the role read employee. And he can see the table customer because he received the read all permission in the object, and this permission maps to the read customer role in the Onelake security. In this way, we just saw how we can map the object permission to the Onelake security roles. And in fact, this map is dynamic because in this case, every time you add or remove an object permission, the user will fall in the correct role in Onelake security. That's why it's called virtual members. Thank you very much for watching and see you next week.